Hello and welcome to this segment of Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, Felicia Taylor, and joining me in studio is Richard Deem, and he's the Executive Director with the Montgomery Area Food Bank. Richard, welcome here to our show.
Thank you, Felicia. I'm really looking forward to our time together.
Great. And of course, today we're going to talk about the food bank's efforts when it comes to assisting and helping impoverished families here in the Montgomery and River Region area. But I want to start off by asking you, Richard, a little bit about your background and how you became involved with the food bank.
Okay, well, Felicia, I'll answer the last part of that first. I'm at the food bank, I believe, at the direction of the Lord. I've endeavored to be in His will. I'm not about to say I have been every day, but I've endeavored to do that and made a covenant with the Lord a number of years ago when I was getting out of the military, and I asked the Lord if He would open doors. I'd go through them, and if He closed them, I'd stop. That's kind of a long way around to say that sometimes we don't understand how we end up where we are. Right. But I'm absolutely thrilled to be here.
And that's great to know that you're in His will. So we're going to go into the whole concept of the food bank.
Okay.
You know, people think, okay, it's food, you're servicing people, but from a ministry standpoint, how important is the food bank for people?
Well, I think that it's critical. You know, when you look at the Lord's interaction with people, He always took care of their physical needs. You remember when the Lord had a little confrontation with Peter after he had arisen. And the thing that struck me was that the Lord made Peter and the other disciples, made them breakfast, fed them, and then He dealt with spiritual matters. Yeah. I just feel that there's certainly a spiritual dynamic that's involved at the food bank. We want to, you know, we're not a church, but we understand the necessity to not only minister to the body, but also to the soul and to the mind.
Yes, and meeting that immediate need that they have.
Absolutely.
And speaking of the food bank, recently we were out on location at one of your food bank stopping places, I believe on the Atlanta Highway.
Yes.
And let's just walk through what happens in a process of a day.
Oh, that's a great question. On that particular, we call those mobile pantries. And basically, a lot of times people can't come to where the food is, so we take the food to where they are. And
sounds familiar, right?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And so the process for that particular mobile pantry and all mobile pantries is the agency that we have there qualifies individuals. In other words, what they do is they ensure that these are people that are in need. And then they contact us. We schedule this mobile pantry. So on that day, what happens is there's about 35 volunteers out there to help. At the food bank, we load up a truck, about a 53-foot truck with about 19 tons of food. We bring it out to the area that's been designated. We offload all of that food, and then the agencies take that food and get that food to, I believe that we had in that particular one, I believe we had over 350 families that were coming through.
And that was going to be my question, Richard. On average, about how many families or people can you serve through the mobile food pantry?
Yeah, I think this was typical. This was a little larger. I was personally at a mobile pantry the other day. We had 200, I think, and 35, and those are families. And so the 300 and some that we had at the location you're talking about represents about 900 individuals. And the interesting thing is 40% of that are children. And that's who we're really trying to help. You know, they're kind of the, I don't want to say victims, but they're the ones that really can't help themselves.
Right. So how prevalent would you say hunger is in Montgomery and our River Region area?
Yeah, it's very prevalent. We have about a 19% of our population are food insecure. We're part of a larger network, Feeding America, that's pretty well known throughout the country. They feed us a lot of statistics. In Alabama, we have probably 18.8% of our entire population, which is over 900,000 people that are food insecure.
And that's on an annual basis.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, for me, if I'm hungry, I want that food. How are you able to impact those that come from a spiritual standpoint? Because most people come to get what they're looking for, and then I'm ready to move on.
Sure. Let me, before I came to the Montgomery Area Food Bank, I was the executive director of the Elmore County Food Pantry. A little different operation, but we were an agency of the food bank.
Of the food bank, yeah.
An agency is kind of what I call an end user. They're the ones that get the food and get the food to the people. What I would do there is we had it set up. We would pray with every person that came through. If they wanted us to. We didn't push it on it.
Right.
And it was not a requirement.
Okay.
But I want to tell you, folks would share with us some of their greatest needs. I had a lady that called me one day, and somebody said, "Big Mama's on the phone."
Oh.
I knew who Big Mama was.
Yeah.
And I got on the telephone. I said, "Big Mama, how are you doing?" She said, "I'm at the hospital, and I've just lost my son." And she said, "Pastor, I wanted you to know." And so that's what we endeavored to do there. Is to be friends with the people, let them know we're praying for them, and that we care for them.
I was going to say that last word you just said, the fact that you care, and it makes a world of difference, and you have a lasting friendship.
Yes.
That is awesome. Let's talk about what are some of the qualifications in order to receive services from the food bank. If I saw that mobile pantry on the Atlanta highway, would I be able to pull over and come and get services?
Yeah. The agencies, again, are responsible to qualify folks. Basically, let me just boil down what the qualification is. If a person is at or below the national poverty level, then they qualify for assistance. In Elmore County, from the agency level, we had ways of ensuring, that they were there.
So for someone listening, do you know that amount, Richard, that's deemed below the poverty level?
Yeah. It's, it goes by how many are in your household.
Okay.
I believe it starts somewhere in the area of $1,400 a month for an individual. All they would need to do is contact us. For those listening, they might be in the outlying areas. We have lists. We have 323 agencies just in 12 counties. And so if someone's listening in and they say, "Hey, I need some help," call us at the Montgomery Area Food Bank, and we'll put you in touch with an agency that can help.
And speaking of agencies, I know for me personally, from one of my former churches that I was involved in, I was heavily involved in our food pantry, and we would come once a week or every 2 weeks to get our supply. I would say go shopping. And I'll never forget, my days were on Tuesday mornings to be at the Montgomery Area Food Bank to pick up what the people coming from the community would come on Thursday and pick up their items.
Wonderful.
How important is it for churches to continue being involved?
It's critical. We have, out of the 323 active agencies that we have, some 250 of those are churches. Now, the others could be faith-based, but they're not, And so, it's absolutely critical We, again, I refer to Elmore County because it was an agency and you can get a better perspective. But when we were there, we started out of a church. We became a kind of a freestanding 501c3.
Standalone. Okay,
right?
okay.
But we had the Christian principles that we could pray with folks and encourage people and those kind of things. Churches are critical. You know, Felicia, when I was pastoring, the most basic need of a person is food. And so, you know, the scripture says, you know, here's what pure religion is. You know, taking care of the widow and the orphan, the fatherless. Now, what the Lord was talking about there was not just those two classes, but he was saying anyone that's helpless, we've got to help. And also, you know, I don't need to preach to you, you know it. But the scripture says if you see your brother in need and you shut up your compassion, boy, it's questionable.
Absolutely.
And so it's just critical. I would love, you know, I would love the opportunity to talk to some pastors that maybe aren't involved. I'd love to be able to kind of lay out how they could help, you know, their parishioners and their neighborhoods.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's, Richard, volunteers, you mentioned those earlier, and I do know that for the mobile pantry, volunteers definitely, but even in the organizations or the agencies, the volunteer, how critical is that, and is there some form of training really quickly for those volunteers?
We need volunteers at the Montgomery Area Food Bank.
Okay.
We have a volunteer coordinator. All, again, people would need to do is contact us there. We'll put them in touch. They do a number of things in our warehouse. I'm personally looking for some volunteer help in the area of receptionist and that type of thing. So there may be somebody listening in that would love to do that. But all they need to do is contact us and we'll let them know everything they need to know.
That is great, Richard. And I know that the Montgomery Area Food Bank is doing everything that they're supposed to do. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Felicia.
And continue being led by God.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Absolutely. And you all stay tuned, and we'll be right back with more of Joy in Our Town.